says it's connecting. Receiving content. Your audience will see it in a moment. Get ready. There it is. So I think we're here. I think we're online. People in the audience, if everyone's out there, let me know if you're getting this stuff, if everything seems okay. Otherwise, I'm here with Clay. We're doing our first live stream. Clay, are you excited? We were going to do video. We tried for the past 15 minutes, but I don't think video for you is going to work. So we're going to get a picture of Poser.
Yeah, it's not going to work for me because I'm not letting you people into my life that intimately. Are you fucking high?
It's it's a big
No, it's just
it's a big stretch. Sorry, and I'm fiddling with things as we're doing this, but it's a big stretch. It is a tough thing to ask, but apparently the internet gods are not going to smile on us. So we're going to be live streaming.
It's nothing against you guys. It's just the connection. And trust me, I took a shower. I'm wearing a shirt.
You just cleaned up the room.
I look like I could be on my way to a very classy wedding right now, and it's all for nothing.
So to get into it, we're going to be talking about buffering. Well, we'll see if that pans out. But we're going to be talking about the Star Trek movies that we saw. Me and Clay went to the Museum of Science, and we saw Wrath of Khan, and we saw First Contact. And what is going on here? Is this working? The video is frozen on my end. Let me know if anything's working out there. 7 people watching, it tells me.
On the plus side of not being able to see me through video, you can't see me get increasingly sweatier because all the windows in my house are closed. And it's not even that hot of a day, but you know, it gets hot kind of quick when you're doing this.
No, and apparently it's the pressure of doing this. Apparently we're good now, although the stream health says it's fine for me, although it is buffering on my screen. So we're going to see. People out there, let me know how this is actually looking. And it's all good for Kyle. So I'm just going to go. This might be dependent on people's internet connections, which Clay and I have just tried to figure out. So we'll try to act like we've done this before, and we're just going to continue on with our conversation here, Clay. So do you want to explain what we did? You brought it to my attention, what we went to go see at the planetarium. Do you want to talk about it?
Sure. It was brought to my attention by a friend of the show, Sean Cordy. And the Museum of Science in Boston, in their planetarium this summer, once a month, they were doing science fiction movies. And if you've ever been to the planetarium or a planetarium, it's a big domed theater where they do star stuff, and they'll do a lot of like laser shows set to Pink Floyd music and stuff like that. But yeah, it just one of the last ones they were doing was Star Trek double feature of Wrath of Khan and First Contact, and I've never seen Wrath of Khan in a theater, let alone a planetarium. And I figured it was a fairly unique way to watch a movie, and we went to check it out. And I thought it was very cool because I was wondering if they were going to do this, and they did, because otherwise, why else would you do this in a planetarium? Once the movie started, they threw the star field up on the rest of the dome.
Yeah.
So everything surrounding the screen area was space, basically, and it added a lot. It was actually the opening of Wrath of Khan was kind of interesting because it's got that sort of Superman-esque title sequence where everything's kind of coming at you. It kind of felt like it almost felt 3D to an extent because it's coming at you on this field of stars, which you're watching on a larger field of stars. So it was slightly disorienting.
Yeah, and they timed it with the intro, so the stars appeared at the time that they come in on Wrath of Khan. Yeah, it was good. We were wondering if they were going to do that, if they were going to tie in the planetarium aspect to it. They did. Otherwise, it was kind of just like looking at a movie theater with a slightly skewed ratio, like a perspective on the film, because it was stretched out a little bit in the middle.
Yeah. It was like a good version of those curved TVs that they tried to sell a couple of years ago.
Right. I think they still do. I don't know if anyone has that out in the audience, but I certainly don't. It didn't seem like an appropriate idea to do with a television. I need that thing flat. We saw the movies. Did you have anything I guess we'll just start with the experience before we go into the actual movies. I liked it. I thought it was neat. You're basically reclining in the planetarium chair and looking up at the ceiling. There's probably 100 people, 125 people, maybe, I would think, in the entire thing.
Yeah.
It was a pretty Star Trek-y crowd. I would describe them as. Only one guy in a uniform, though, right?
There was only one guy in a uniform, but I was not disappointed by as soon as we sat down, I got hit with some BO coming from somewhere.
It was
and I
the
was
ki-
like,
it was
you know
the
what? I wouldn't expect anything less from a bunch of people going to see Star Trek movies at a planetarium.
it was the kid to my right who funny enough, when I got there early, had to get some food because I came right from work, and I sat down, and those two actually sat down next to me. It was like a woman and her either son or someone she was looking after, and they were having a very odd conversation with each other. And I was like, oh, it's just, museum folk hanging out, having a conversation. Nothing particularly too strange about it, but just sort of like an abnormal conversation, I would describe it as. And so they came in and they sat down next to me, and he was a potpourri mix of teenage body odor and marijuana, I thought I faintly smelled. And so he was fine. I think he fell asleep through Wrath of Khan, so I wasn't sure it was her idea or his idea. I think it might have been the mother's idea. And then they did not come back for First Contact. So,
yeah, I noticed the guy in costume didn't come back either. I don't know if
oh, really?
Yeah, I don't know if at least I don't remember him coming back because he was sitting 2 seats down from me and he wasn't there when the second movie started. So I don't know if he got another seat or if he left or what. I mean, I feel like if you're gonna put the costume on, you may as well commit to both movies. Even the girl who was doing the intros did a costume change in between movies.
Yeah, right. The girl running the show was pretending to be a Vulcan. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate her as a Vulcan?
I'd give her a 7.
Yeah, I was thinking the same.
I think she was a little bit nervous to be actually playing a role because when she was able to be herself after she switched to the Next Generation, she was a lot more relaxed in the way she was delivering all the information. But when she was doing her Vulcan shtick, it seemed like she was really working to stay in character.
It was the she was doing our criticism of playing a Vulcan like they're robots, which is, if I'm going to grade her performance, which I don't think is particularly fair, that's not the performance that I think is appropriate. Anything else about the planetarium? Decent crowd, funny kind of smell. It was awesome to see the movies on the planetarium screen. The starfield in the background was neat. I think it definitely
added to the experience. Like, just because you're waiting in line outside in front of this giant glowing model of the sun, and they've got these models of the planets and stuff in there, so it definitely adds to the atmosphere.
Yeah.
And coming in and doing the stars and everything, I thought it was really cool. I would definitely do it again.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think.
Would you see any movie, or you're not talking about Star Trek? You're just talking about a movie in general?
Yeah, I'm just talking about any movie. Maybe I wouldn't. No, I don't know. I probably would. I mean, if it's the right movie, if they're playing like Sophie's Choice at the planetarium, I'm probably not going to hit that one up. But yeah, I think if it's a movie you're a big fan of and you've seen it a bunch of times, it is definitely a fun new way to experience it.
Yeah, I think the a sci-fi themed movie or genre would be probably best. I don't know if they could actually add any more of like the starfield effect to things. I don't know how that would work. It's neat. I thought the sound was good. The camera, I thought First Contact looked a lot better. It's just the age of the films. But Wrath of Khan didn't really... I wasn't blown away by the look of Wrath of Khan, but maybe we'll just get into that. So let's talk about... we're rating women already, Kyle Barrett. That's right. It's probably not... And Alberta Nationalist is probably not marijuana. Probably that Xbox playing teenager smell they all have. I don't know. I don't have a teenager, so once Alistair goes
I think that's marijuana. I think...
It's Mountain Dew.
If you're the father to a teenage son and you're blaming that smell on Xbox, like, it's some bad news for you.
Do we want to talk about the movies? Do we want to start with Wrath of Khan, or do you want to just sort of mix and match? I found that we watched them back to back. It was like 4 hours of movie watching. Mm-hmm. There was a 15-minute break in the middle. I don't think maybe comparing them is the best way to go. I found it was really enlightening to watch them back to back because I've never done that before.
Yeah.
And to see the difference between I assume they chose these because it's the best TOS movie and the quote unquote best TNG movie.
Yes, I assume
Um,
so. Yeah.
so do you what did you think? Let's talk about them in terms of comparison. I guess you can just go off any kind of thoughts that you had about it, the movies in general, because we've already done the podcast coverage of it, but this was a little bit different. And I'll start off by saying that I don't go to the theaters all that often, really. So it's a big difference watching it. I got a lot out of being in a crowd, even if it was a smaller crowd, watching those films. And I think that that also highlighted the difference between the two movies. But what do you think?
Hmm. Um, yeah, for me, watching them back to back, I've always liked Wrath of Khan over the other ones, but First Contact has always been a close second for me, and I think doing it this way has actually made that gap a little bit bigger, because I I thought Wrath of Khan was awesome. I've seen that movie a million times, and it still worked for me. I don't know, maybe I'm being a little unfair because it's like you come out of Wrath of Khan, and it's such a complete experience, and it's got the big emotional stuff at the end, and then you're in the planetarium and stuff, and then it's over, and then it's great, and that's like, okay, leave for 20 minutes and then come back and we're going to watch the next one, and you do that, and I felt it a little bit harder for me to get into First Contact. I don't know if it was because it was just such a different style of movie or what. Like, as I was watching Wrath of Khan, I was thinking, oh, this is great. I'm really looking forward to First Contact because, I'm really looking for. I haven't watched the Next Generation thing in a while, so I'm looking forward to that. And then when it started, I was like, okay, yeah, I don't know. It was, I still enjoyed it, but like I don't think I didn't enjoy First Contact as much as I enjoyed Wrath of Khan.
Yeah, it's a little fatiguing to watch two of
Yeah.
them in a row. So TNG suffered from that. I think that my big takeaway from watching it, and Kyle Barrett says Undiscovered Country is actually the best TOS movie, but I would say Voyage Home would be
Yeah, I don't know about that.
my favorite. Alberta Nationalist agrees that Star Trek 6 is probably the best Star Trek 6 is the best TNG movie.
That's all right. People can be wrong.
I know this is the podcast has proven that opinions can be wrong objectively. So I think that the thing that I learned about it was that the movies are really interesting in that I agree with you that Wrath of Khan is far superior to First Contact as a movie. I found them to be they're complementary in their weaknesses and strengths to each other. So the things that each of them don't do particularly well, the other movie tends to do well. Wrath of Khan tends to do the things that matter as a quality marker of film than TNG. Like the things that are important to a good movie are done better by Wrath of Khan. The sort of aesthetic stuff is done better by First Contact.
Yeah.
And I think that the thing about Wrath of Khan is that I really enjoyed and I think it highlighted the difference between the two things. Like the TOS movies feel like they are elevations and evolutions of the characters and storytelling in a way that the TNG movies feel like they are the show, except being written to. They're a script of the show when an executive came in and said, you need to make this bigger because this is a movie.
Yeah, I was going to say the exact same thing. The thing that really stood out to me watching them back to back is that First Contact felt like a big episode of the show, and I think we kind of touched on that a bit when we were covering them. Maybe not so much First Contact, but I know when we were doing Insurrection, the thing that was sort of a plus and a minus to a lot of people is that movie just feels like kind of a big episode of the show. And I think watching them the way we did, that aspect is not different for First Contact. Wrath of Khan feels like a movie.
Yeah.
First Contact feels like a big budget episode of the show, and that's not a bad thing. I mean, I'm not saying that to necessarily take away from it. I mean, that's not a reason why you can't enjoy it or anything. It's a stark difference.
Yeah.
I don't know if that has to do with the era that they were made in, um, or what? I don't know. It seems like I think what's interesting with the Star Trek movies specifically is the first ones were made when, for the most part anyway, were made when there was no other version of Star Trek going. So each Star Trek movie was an event, and they kind of had to make it movie worthy.
Yeah.
But by the time you get to the TNG stuff, it's like getting a getting a Star Trek movie almost starts to become like graduating from middle school to high school, or from high school to college, or something.
Yeah.
Where it's like, well, TNG's over now, and the other guys are old, so they're obviously going to be the next people to come in and start doing. So it was kind of like assumed that they would do movies,
Mm-hmm.
but there's also Deep Space Nine going on. There's also Voyager going on. There's also Enterprise going on. I think, is there an overlap? Were they still doing movies when Enterprise was on?
They would have been doing Nemesis, probably,
Yeah.
potentially. If not, they were
So
very
yeah,
close. Yeah.
and it seems like I think even at the time, I remembered thinking like, oh, I wonder if when the TNG guys are done, I wonder if Deep Space Nine is going to take over doing movie, stuff like that. So I think that kind of probably lays into or supports the fact that they feel like big episodes of the show, because they've got this what's the word I'm looking for, like repertory of writers and everybody who had just been working on this stuff all the time,
Yeah.
and they just shift those guys over and start doing movies. Like the Wrath of Khan, not sorry, First Contact is written by Braga and Moore, right?
Yeah. And Alberta Nationalist says that he just commented that makes sense since Khan was made by a veteran filmmaker while First Contact was made by veterans of the series.
Yeah, yeah, and um, I think you can see. I think First Contact doesn't look like an episode of the show. Like, I think Frakes really stepped up his game.
It looks
But
good.
I do think, yeah, I do think there are aspects of it that do feel like upscaling TV.
The big thing to me is that Khan the reason Khan is good is because it really nails the characters as if they are an evolution of being 15 years in the future from the TV show.
Yeah.
This is how these people should act. And I feel that the movies like Khan give you insight into those characters in a way that the First Contact TNG movies don't. Like, you don't really learn anything about the TNG characters in the movies. Nothing changes for
Right.
them.
Yeah.
And I feel that it's a little bit frustrating. And it's like, if you're going to make a movie, I think that nailing the theme of the movie is movies kind of need to have a theme or be about something to maintain interest. And the TOS movies are about something, and the TNG movies aren't about something. And I would say that the themes of Wrath of Khan are actually legitimately really interesting. And whatever First Contact's themes are, outside of it being a zombie actiony movie, which I'm okay with not really being about anything if it's just doing that. But they try to stick stuff in, like they try to stick the Data stuff in, and they try to make this about Data somehow, and it never works for me. I never feel like the Data storyline is saying anything about Data or being about anything. It's just kind of nonsense words being spoken between the Queen and Data that sound good at the time but aren't really about anything.
Well, I think that's also, excuse me. I think that's also probably a result of it being a continuation of the show, because they're playing with characters and doing stuff with them based on stuff they assume you've already seen. So, like, the stuff with Data works because you already know what Data's deal is.
Yeah.
If you can go into Wrath of Khan having never seen a Star Trek anything and totally get it and totally be on board and totally be immersed in what's going on. First Contact, if that's the first Star Trek thing you've ever seen, the Data stuff kind of comes out of nowhere, and
Yeah.
like you said, doesn't really have that much of a relationship to anything else. If they had, they get into it a little bit at the end, in a way that I think maybe they could have leaned into more, where when Picard to save Data, and he's like, "Take me, let Data go. I'll be your, whatever." And then she's like, "Well, I don't want you now. You don't want to do this. Data wants to do this."
Yeah.
That's pretty interesting, because if they set up Data and Picard as throughout the movie having these contrasting themes of wanting to be part of Data, wanting to be part of something and wanting to be more human and wanting to be, have, skin or whatever.
Yep.
Versus Picard very clearly pushing back against the Borg and, hating them. If they had put their attitudes at odds a little bit more, I think that stuff would work a lot better.
Yeah, I'd agree.
That might be a different movie, though. I mean, that might be a completely different movie.
Kyle Barrett says Nemesis came out halfway between Enterprise Season 2. So there's that. Voyage Home tried too hard to be funny, in my opinion. Captain Brazen says Star Trek 2 is definitely a better movie. It's a complete package and story from start to finish. It feels like the Odyssey. First Contact feels tonally weird between the planet and the ship. General Spinobi says First Contact is still far and away the best next-gen film.
I think what's also interesting, is that, for the crap, well, I don't say crap, but for the
I got to keep this video monetized, Clay. You can't keep your potty health.
Well, no, I was for the crap that we're giving First Contact and saying it feels like a extension of the TV show.
Yeah,
it actually is much more of an ensemble movie than really any of the TOS movies are.
Yes.
Like everybody, all the main cast in First Contact have good stuff to do. Like, watching it again, I was thinking, man, this might be my favorite thing that they've ever done with Crusher. Crusher actually gets to do stuff.
Yeah.
She doesn't get like a starring role, but she actually gets a couple scenes where she gets to be active and do things. More so than most people she ever really did on the show, minus Candle Ghosts and stuff. But,
yeah, of course.
But if you look at the TOS movies, like Sulu is barely there. Uhura is barely there. Chekhov is
true to
literally
the series.
Shoved in a box for half a movie.
Yeah. I think Chekhov has the biggest showing outside of the main three in this one.
He does, but even there, it's like he's just a plot device.
Yep.
Once Khan's done with him, he shoves him in a box until they find him, and then after that, he's only there to reunite with the crew and doesn't really do much at all.
Yeah.
Spock and Kirk and McCoy have the most to do, which rightly so. I mean, they're the core of the thing. But First Contact had so much more time. I mean, TNG had so much more time to spend with these characters and develop them that we've talked about a million times, that everybody gets a showing. And whether or not that's a plus or a minus, I'm going to say it's a plus. I think overall it's a plus.
My thing about it is that when I started by saying that they do things better than the other one does, I think that going over it, the biggest weakness to me by far in Wrath of Khan is I think that I feel like the script and the narrative feel like a bunch of set pieces that are connected to each other, and they don't have there's not a good sense of momentum in the film to me that moves people between the scenes. Not that it doesn't make sense. I totally understand everything, why they're doing it and the way that it goes. But to me, First Contact's strength, and it feels more like it's kind of like a modernization of writing in a way, or for cinema and TV, is that the Wrath of Khan feels like you have individual little scenes that are connected and you can clearly chop them when they move into the next scene. Yeah. First Contact feels very natural in a way that when you were saying it's an ensemble piece, the characters splitting apart and going into their own storylines feels very natural and smooth to me in a way that the Wrath of Khan stuff doesn't. Wrath of Khan is like, we meet Khan. Now we have the space battle. Now we go to meet the station. Now we're down on the planet. Now we have another space battle. It's like each scene is like a distinct chunk of the movie in a way that First Contact feels much more smooth.
Yeah, it's funny. Watching it this time, I can't remember if either of us called this out when we did the podcast, but about halfway through, I was like, shit. Everybody on Earth has no idea what's happening on the Enterprise. What's the scene like at the end when they get everybody back and Riker gets back on the ship and goes, holy shit, what happened to here? Is everybody dead? What happened?
They do have Riker has one line where he's like, we can't get in contact. We don't know what's happened. I feel he should be very alarmed by that they can't, because then there's the when the ship is flying by and he's like, don't worry, doctor, I'm sure they're just here to give us a send
Yeah,
off or
they're
whatever.
completely oblivious. And then like even they don't even bring it up even after the Enterprise fires 4 photon torpedoes at them.
That was a little bit do you have the same problem with Wrath of Khan? Did you notice that, or is that just something that's on me?
Um,
The chunkiness of it.
I see what you mean. But I it didn't really stand out to me.
Okay.
I definitely know what you mean, though. It does seem kind of like very clearly segmented into different parts of the movie. Yeah, that never really bothered me. I mean, sometimes that does bother me, but in that one, maybe it's just my I've watched it so many times it doesn't it doesn't really compute with me anymore. Like I this is off topic a little bit, but I remember years ago I was watching Batman, the 1989 Batman, and
Hmm.
I've seen that movie a million times. I could there was a point somebody quizzed me where they could pick any point in the movie, they would pause it, and I would give you the next line of dialogue, and I won every time.
Yep. Yep.
And I hadn't really sat down and watched it in a long time, and so I sat down and I watched it, and my familiarity with the movie was so uh, overwhelming that I kind of couldn't watch it as a movie because everything just seemed so broken up. And I
Yeah.
don't know if that was what that was. I don't know where that was coming from, but sitting down and watching it, I was like, this just feels like it's a bunch of different stuff crammed together. And maybe I don't know, maybe that's how people feel about that movie. But
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it's weird how that stuff. I've watched it since then and I haven't felt that. So it maybe sometimes that stuff pops up, sometimes it doesn't. I do I do want to mention though. Afterwards, when we were leaving, my girlfriend was talking about how she was amazed that anybody uh, in the studio like gave them money after they started sending in the dailies from the final fight scene in Wrath of Khan,
Sure.
because she was like, how did anybody get excited about what they were seeing when they were making this movie? It's literally a bunch of people staring at a screen floating in silence for like 20 minutes,
Yeah.
and then it's people just like staring at a static screen. But like when you watch it all together, it just works so well. And it's like, yeah, I mean, if you really break it down, that sequence is just basically two ships floating away from each other,
Yeah. Yeah.
missing when they're shooting, and like people staring at static. So it is kind of a strange thing if you haven't gotten to that point in the movie. Yes, it's going to seem really silly, but by the time you get there in the flow of everything, it's like it works completely. It's
Yeah. I thought
you're totally in for it.
I thought it's a pretty good chase sequence, I guess, for like as slow moving as it is. I feel like
Yeah.
it's actually a pretty effective chase sequence, but it is a lot of just the Enterprise sneaking up on the Reliant and just shooting and missing, and then blurry screens and everything like that.
I
Um,
do love um the Khan's second in command there, who is like kind of the voice of reason, and Khan just keeps, and every time he says something that makes a lot of sense, where he's like, why are we doing this? We have a ship, we could go literally anywhere, we have the most powerful weapon in the universe, why are you chasing this asshole? And then for a second, Khan maybe considers it, and then Kirk comes over the thing, he's like, hey Khan, you're a pussy.
yeah,
And then he's like, that's why I must destroy him.
I'm still here. I think that I like Khan. I think Khan is 7% too much for me. A little bit,
Mm-hmm.
like he's a little. I know he's supposed to be over the top, and that's the whole thing about it. He's a little bit over the top, and when you hear all the stories about Meyer was trying to rein in Shatner, was he just less successful with Montalban, or was he like Khan needs to be larger than life in a way that is a little
Yeah.
bit absurd?
I was thinking that too. I think it's the latter, because I mean he's not in the movie for that long.
No,
He's
no,
got
he's not.
like maybe 15 minutes of screen time, if that.
Yep.
Whereas Kirk is in like every scene of the movie almost. So it makes a lot of sense that you're gonna want to dial him back. And Khan, you kind of have to be you have to be you have to believe Khan as quickly as possible,
Right.
and he's not in it long enough to really let that stuff germinate. Um, which is compared to the way that they handle him in the Kelvin movie, where he's in the movie for 45 minutes before they even tell you who he is,
Right.
really.
Yep.
But they even there they don't really do a good job of explaining it, of getting his character across. So in this one, it's like we have to go. We have Chekhov or whoever explain basically the plot of Space Seed, but then on top of that, you need Khan to be believable and menacing and engaging as quickly as possible.
Yeah. Yeah. I think he's really good in the earworm scene with Chekhov and Terrell.
Yeah.
I think that it's really just his final death scenes where it's just Shakespeare quotes and
Yeah,
like
that's a little bit much.
He's just bloody and laying there. I also think something I noticed. He doesn't get an image on the view screen right before he blows up of the Enterprise escaping, which I think is odd. Like it seems like that's the cliche scene to have him go like no, and then the ship blows up.
Yeah, I realized they kind of don't really give him a death scene.
No.
He has that thing where he's from hell's heart I stab at thee and whatnot. But then he kind of like after he says that he kind of like rolls back away from camera, and I think the implication is that he's dying, but they don't linger on it. They just cut away, and I was like, oh, do they cut back before the ship? But no, they that's just the last you see of him.
Cardinal Doomsday says, I'd love to see Khan and Cisco face off. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah, interrupted you.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, which I kind of almost enjoy that because I am not a huge fan of the extended death scene because it seems like it's always done in everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like one of my least favorite tropes in anything is I'm mortally wounded, but we're gonna talk for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And then I'm just gonna quickly die at the end. I hate that stuff, especially when it's like characters in a relationship or whatever, and it's like, oh, I've just been stabbed through the heart. Let's talk about our feelings for the next 5 minutes so we can tie up these plot threads before I die.
Looking at you, Reservoir Dogs.
I mean that whole movie is talking about someone's dying. That's a exception to the rule, I think.
I think that Khan works really well. The character stuff is great. Spock's death is good. I think that the quotes that the characters have, we got genuine laughs from the audience for Wrath of Khan, in a way that I don't think people laughed at First Contact. Did you notice that? They laughed at First Contact and they laughed with Wrath of Khan in the audience that we were with.
Yeah, my girlfriend afterwards, I was like, oh, she had seen both of them before, but I was like, what did you think of First Contact? It's kind of goofy. And I was like, yeah, when you compare it to Wrath of Khan, it is kind of goofy in some spots.
Yeah. I mean, it's you're battling against movie data, who's just got jokes, apparently.
Yeah.
Some of it works. I think the Deanna getting drunk scene still holds up fairly well.
Yes.
It's still pretty funny. There's good acting there. It's just that there was a woman in the audience who just was like really, I don't know if she got brought along by her boyfriend or something, but she was really laughing at First Contact because it is a little bit goofier in a way that Wrath of Khan isn't. Wrath of Khan maybe
she's just like a hardcore TOS person and is like, what the fuck is this bullshit?
Who is this guy? There's a debate about this. Khan is just a good movie. The themes of Khan are just good. It's like it's pretty much the distillation of all the 6 movies that TOS would ever do with the aging thing. I think Khan nails that exploration of the topic the best. And First Contact doesn't really have that. And, if you want to go First Contact as an action movie, which I'm fine, one thing I've always kind of noticed, I don't know if I've said it before, the scene where they eject the deflector dish with the Borg on it is way too slow for what they're trying to do there. It's a really that's a really boring scene that takes about 10 minutes to get through.
I would also like to mention that I do understand that I just railed against characters having death scene back and forth conversations after saying how much I love Wrath of Khan, that's like the last 20 minutes of the movie. That's not exactly what I that scene is not exactly what I mean. There's a lot more times where those things are egregious. Like the one I always hate is was it the third Matrix movie when they
Yeah.
kill Trinity or whatever? It's like she gets stabbed like 40 times, and then they're like, "Let's have a crying conversation about that." No, it's different. Wrath of Khan, that stuff works. A lot of times that stuff doesn't work.
Kyle wants to know, is the line must be drawn here scene still Clay's favorite out of the whole franchise? I don't know if you had said that. I assume you said
Is that
that.
what I said?
You might you have to justify it here if not.
You know, it's still pretty damn good. I was that's what I was waiting for in that one. That one, and of course, if you were any other man, I'd kill you where you stand. Both of those scenes are really good,
Yeah.
and I think they're just well written character pieces. Uh, do you think in First Contact, Picard's vengeance factor is as clear as it could be? Like, I feel like
No,
eventually,
it's less clear than, especially because Khan is about the vengeance factor as well. Not the TNG episode,
yeah,
but there's much
like
more clarity in the TOS version.
yeah, like when you get to the point where they're doing that scene with Worf and the scene with Lily, that stuff's really good. But I don't know if they really hit those beats as well as they could leading up to that point.
Yep.
Like I know they do the thing with in the holodeck where she's like, "Oh, you look like you really got some pleasure out of killing that guy," and he's really cold when it turns out that it's Ensign, whatever his name was.
Yeah. Lopez, maybe?
Um, yeah. But yeah, I don't know.
Good character.
I don't know if maybe they could lay into it a little bit more. Yeah.
I think we mentioned in the podcast, my problem with it is that it is the way that the problems and theme and stuff work in Khan is tougher in the TNG movies because Picard is completely normal when he's not having a Borg episode. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes. Yeah.
it's really just whenever a Borg appears in the movie or the episode, you know he has to reckon with it, but it feels very inconsistent because of the episodic nature of TNG. Like, he's not permanently damaged by that in any other way. So when he steps into damaged Picard mode, it feels very arbitrary and artificial.
Yeah.
Ensign
yeah.
Lynch. That was the name. That was the name of the ensign. Ensign Lynch.
I kept wondering. Every time I watch this, I keep wondering, why doesn't Lily go? Wait a minute. You used to be one of these things. You look okay.
Yeah.
These guys don't look okay. how are you okay?
Makeup's
You
come
had
a
all
long
this
way.
shit implanted in you, but then like next week or by the end of the episode, you were fine.
I think that the whatever the hologram doctor had some ointment for them. I think, and maybe he gave that to Picard and fixed things up.
I would like to say, thanks to my newfound fluency in Deep Space Nine things, I did get a nice moment of recognition when they gave some good screen time to the Defiant.
Yeah.
Because I never realized that's what that was.
Yeah,
I was like, oh, hey, look, it's the Defiant.
You're gonna start to realize now once you've watched DS9 how they have to work to bring Worf back each and every time. Here it makes a lot of sense. The Defiant is out there. I was actually wondering as we were watching that. I was like, I wonder if Clay ever realized that was the Defiant that Worf was flying in on. Yeah.
Well, it's funny because when they showed it, they give it a good shot, like right in camera, and obviously Worf is flying it and everything. But I didn't realize, or I guess it never registered with me that they actually mention it by name.
Yep. Tough little ship, which is the line that
I guess
they use in Defiant, the episode with Tom Riker.
Oh, is it? Oh, that's good. Yeah. See, layers upon layers upon layers.
Yeah.
That actually does bring me up. Bring another thing up. One of the things that I found, we were kind of saying how the chase sequence in Wrath of Khan is really good, and the space battle is pretty good, even though they're just kind of like shooting blindly. And I found that stuff a lot more satisfying and worked better for me than the Defiant style fighting in First Contact, where like
Really?
in TOS, or I should say in the TOS movies anyway, firing weapons seems to be a bigger deal.
Yeah.
Then in the TNG stuff, you've got like the Defiant buzzing in with Gatling guns on the side of it, and the Enterprise is always firing like 8 torpedoes at once and all that, all that kind of stuff. And I found that to be, watching them back to back, I was thinking, oh, yeah, the TOS movies, it feels like firing weapons is a much bigger deal.
Yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of a nature of the fight there, I guess, too.
True.
Like
That's true.
they're
Yeah.
fighting blind and Khan, and this is First Contact is really just the first opportunity to show you what the Battle of Wolf 359 would have looked like if they had the budget to do it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it would have bothered me that much if I hadn't watched them back to back, but seeing them that way, it just amplified for me the difference in the way that they handle space battles.
I still really like the First Contact space battle. I like that opening sequence. I think it's the most effective voiceover for the Borg that they've ever done, where they hijack the communications thing and do their little spiel. Every time I watch it now, I'm just like, how far away are they where they can arrive 2 seconds later and the battle's still going on?
Yes.
One thing I wanted to say about both movies that they're very similar. They both have terrible opening credits, terrible sequence. It's just the names on a star screen basically, and it's really
the
boring.
opening credits for First Contact are really bad.
Yeah. Although I like the music better than Khan. I would say I'd rather watch First Contact, I think, than Khan. I think Khan is really not very interesting.
The credits, you mean?
Yeah, the opening credits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just what is it? Yeah, the First Contact ones is kind of like this like wavy distorted thing that turn into the names.
Yeah.
And then the Khan one is like I think it's kind of like a Superman type thing, right? Where it's sort of like they
the blue outline.
Yeah.
Yep. No. Let's see here. Well, we have to start doing some podcast recording. Did you have anything else you wanted to talk about before we wrap this one up?
No. Can you see, so you can see what everybody else is saying, right?
I
They
can.
see what everybody else is saying?
Yes, they can. Everyone can see everybody.
Oh, well, that's fun. I am a little disappointed that we aren't on video, because I was going to do some shameless plugging of my books that are coming out, but I guess, what are you going to do?
Yeah, you can. Kyle Barrett says the Wrath of Khan music is incredible, but Kyle is just, I don't know, he's been wrong recently. So Cardinal Doomsday says, can I still like First Contact even though I loathe the Borg Queen? Let's talk about that, I guess. Did your opinion about the Borg Queen change anything?
No, I don't mind the Borg Queen. I think that, I think the Borg Queen makes sense if you're going to use the Borg in a movie.
Yeah, I'll say she doesn't make sense, but she makes sense for a movie.
Yeah. I mean, she doesn't make sense conceptually given what the Borg is supposed to be. But if you're going to use the Borg in a movie, it's, well, maybe that's unfair. They could have done a different movie. They could have done something a little bit more like Alien or like The Thing, where that plays a lot more on the stress level and the relationships of the people on the ship.
Yeah.
And how they approach the Borg. And that maybe that's what you need to really ratchet up Picard's Ahabness.
Yeah.
And vengeance factor against them, But at the same time, I can understand why they do the Queen thing, because you need something for Picard to face down.
You do.
That's
I think
a little bit more personal.
Yeah, it's just, it doesn't work for me. Like, the Locutus coming home maybe works for me. I really don't understand. It's just because the Borg Queen's rationale for needing a partner makes no sense to me. Like,
so, well, go ahead. I was just going to say, so how would you feel if instead of the Borg Queen, they had just used Data? So basically, like, they pull Data in, and then basically Data has basically the same
the arc is
dialogue
Picard.
What's that?
Well, it's the arc of the Locutus. It's the Locutus arc. Like, Data becomes the spokesman for the Borg.
Yeah, basically. But Data is a little bit more eloquent.
Yeah.
And so so it's like, it's this sort of thing where it's like, the Borg have joined with me, and now we are now this new being, and blah blah blah. You know, that kind of shit where he's like, the joining with Data is like a step up in evolution for them. And
See,
so
that's
that,
the thing. I think that doesn't make sense because they don't seem to regard Data as a perfect life form, and I feel that the
True.
Borg. I feel like the Borg should be more impressed and respectful of Data than they are in this. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like the Borg are kind of trying to become Data. I don't know what they think they get out of being biological with like aspects to it.
Right.
But I don't know. That would be a totally different thing. Maybe it's just the fact that we watched it with a crowd. I was very highly aware of how awkwardly sexual the Data and Borg Queen stuff is. It's very obvious. It's not like I was missing it, but I felt a little bit more awkward watching with other people around. You know what I mean? Like it felt bad in a way that I was like, I wish they hadn't put this in the movie.
Yeah, I don't think I totally remembered that they imply that they have sex.
Yeah. And Data says the fully functional thing, and you cringe a little bit. There's a lot of little cringy moments in First Contact that aren't in Wrath of Khan.
Did you notice though that when she asks him when the last time he used those capabilities was, and he gave the exact date, someone in the audience went, "Oh." And I was like, "Is that like a wistful?" And it wasn't me. Is that like a wistful remembrance of Tasha Yar or something?
Or
Tasha.
just feeling bad for Data, I guess. You shouldn't feel bad. Data doesn't feel bad. He's not all pent up or anything like that. So who knows? Let's see. We should get the podcast going. So we're going to sign off here. Kyle asked that you give a Buffy reference, Clay, just to make this an official.
To give a Buffy reference.
What'd you think of the remastered DVDs?
Oh, for Buffy?
Yeah.
Oh boy. Yeah, I don't think those were DVDs. I think they were just for whatever channel was that was playing them or something. But
Yep.
yeah, that was not good. Yeah, I think I can't think of a good Buffy comparison off the top of my head.
There is no Buffy movie, right? Is there ever chatter about making a Buffy movie?
I think there had been.
There is the original Buffy movie, but
yeah.
not.
Oddly, I don't think as much as you have now. Like, I think Buffy was kind of over before that was really a thing. Because I mean, Firefly only lasted 14 episodes, and they're like, we gotta make a movie.
Yeah.
And now everything is like that. Any show that nobody watches for some reason, people think that like earns them a big budget feature.
Yes. Well, Kickstarter has made it possible now. You can have a tiny audience and still have enough money to make a cheap movie.
Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe we'll be able to see the difference once they start this new Buffy series, and maybe I'll have to watch old Buffy and new Buffy back to back, and then be the old person who's like, the old Buffy was much better because they didn't have Google.
I think we're done, guys. Thank you very much for checking in. Good to talk to you. Good to hang out with you. Hope you enjoyed the discussion we had about Wrath of Khan, First Contact, seeing it in the theater for the first time. Or I saw First Contact. I've never seen Wrath of Khan in the theater. That's about it. Clay, we're going to a Discovery movie, Kyle Barrett says. I don't know about that. But anyway, we're going to call it a day here. We have to get the podcast done. So those will make it out on time this week. But hopefully you guys enjoyed. Let me know in the Discord channel or on these comments if you enjoyed this process. Clay, what did you think about live streaming?
Doesn't feel really different.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't feel different from a podcast at all.
Seeing, I mean, I'm not on video, so it's the same thing I always do, except now I'm, there's light in my house because I expected to be on video.
It's kind of like you've become blind and we're doing it, and I have to read things to you about it, and then you kind of react to like the comments and chat and stuff, which maybe wouldn't have worked. I can probably send you the link to the chat, I think, because it pops out as its own little internet window.
Oh, interesting.
Careful, Clay. They'll be doing a Discovery movie if you don't watch out. And then Ewan says, maybe one day I'll be able to see a movie in a planetarium. Well, you live in Scotland, remote Scotland, so you have that truck that comes and lets the village locals watch a movie every 6 months or something. You're free to come to this side of the pond and check out a planetarium movie if you ever have the time. Guys, thank you very much. We are done. Clay, thanks for coming on. Is Clay gone? Clay might be gone. That's a good enough time as any to stop.
Sorry. No, you're Yeah, you're breaking up on me here.
Oh, good time to stop then. All right, guys, thank you very much. Let me know what you thought about this. And we got one do it again, but we're going to sign off now. Thank you very much. See you later.